Well, good evening and welcome to Table Talk tonight. It's Table Talk with a difference. Why? Because we're in our new building up at the Mill at our Bolton campus. We're on the top floor, which ultimately will be part of an enterprise centre for young emerging businesses. We are so pleased that you've joining us on this Thursday evening, and we're excited for what we're going to discuss tonight. This is the last in the series while we have a break over the summer, but tonight the theme is Back to the Future. Over the next few weeks and months, everything in life is going to go back to what some people think is going to be normal. We're going to go back to work, back to school, back to how we were, what we were doing before. But Kings wants to take our last table talk right across all our campuses to talk about we're not going back to anything. We're going back to the future of what God has for us. So tonight is going to be a discussion. It's going to be talking about how we're going to move forward, what are going to be the obstacles. We're going to help people get over the anxiety of what the future is going to look like, because we believe passionately this, that all King's best days are ahead of us, and we're believing, as we've been teaching on a Sunday, this has been a setback to bring us to a comeback, and we're going to come back strong on all our campuses. So we just wanted to give you a glimpse of something about what the future is going to look like, and then we're going to get our coffee, get around the table, and let's get some talking done. Okay, well, we have moved everybody over from the top floor of our new building in the Mill over to our Youth and Kids venue, where we're joined by great pastors, Adam and Susie Islip, who are pastors of our Bolton campus here, and my lovely wife, Georgina, to discuss the content of Back to the Future. I don't know if you remember the original film, but we've just come over from, in our DeLorean. I'm Michael J. Fox.
Of course.
Susie can be the mad professor because he had wild hair, and she's having a haircut this afternoon. And the even better news is, at 4 o'clock this afternoon, I am having my haircut too. So thank God lockdown is coming to an end. But in all seriousness, nobody saw this pandemic coming. Where the start of the year, when we all celebrated on New Year's Eve, the dawn of 2020, who'd have thought that the church buildings would have been closed for 8 months of the year or something like that? And yet, at the same time, the buildings may be closed, but the church is very much open. So the content of what we want to discuss today is the whole subject of back to the future. We're going back to normal, as I said before, but we're moving into the future. And what we want to do is encourage you. We want to inspire you. We want to give you hope that things will get back to normal, but normal may look slightly different. And also ask the question, what have we learned about the church? What have we learned about our lives over these months of lockdown? And what will we take into the future that COVID-19 has taught us? Being a terrible thing that has happened all around the world, and yet God knew it was coming, and we've got to learn from what we've been through into make a great time for the future. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are going back to the future. So Ads, let me ask you a question, and you can chip in, Susie, whenever you want to as well. We're still not out of lockdown. It's eased slightly. I mean, we're still social distancing, and it's easing slightly. People are starting to get back to whatever normal looks like. You guys have been pastoring the church a lot more hands-on than we have. What have you seen in God's people over these last 14, 15 weeks that's good and the bad?
I've been really impressed by people who've really stepped up. No one saw this coming.
No.
And for some people, it came into their world at the worst time, and yet what it's brought out of them is incredible faith, courage. All of us have to reorganise our worlds, don't we? But some people have just really impressed me by their tenacity, their willingness to do whatever it takes. I mean, we talk about that being a value, don't we? And it's on our wall. One of our King's Code is doing whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And some people have absolutely done that. I think the Giants team have done an incredible job. I think people are just transitioning to homeschooling. We've done it.
It's done now.
We're through it. All that transition, people taking it in their stride, and I love that. And I love people who are really pressing in, not just to church now, but to God. And actually, when they're on their own at home, and you've not got the bells and whistles of church, just being on your own and really pressing into your walk with God. I've been really, really encouraged by people. And it's been challenging to pastor, because what pastor wants to pastor through a Zoom call, not me. And so, not being able to really get around people and hug people. But our pastoral team have been incredible at Bolton campus. And every campus, they've gone above and beyond. And so all that's really encouraged me. So we've often said that when you're going through a crisis, when you're squeezed, what's really in you comes out. And I think the same is true for the church. When you're going through a crisis, what's really in the church is sometimes only seen when you're going through it. Yeah. And what I've seen has really encouraged me. And also, what's been difficult is people that maybe have disconnected a bit and not been enjoying Zoom and not been connecting with online, and it's frustrating, but ultimately we trust them to God. And I'm praying that when we get back into our buildings, there's a real momentum and people connect quickly. And I'm just thankful for the fact that we're in a church that are thinking beyond just the crisis and thinking about the future.
It's funny, when you mentioned about homeschooling, the hairs on the back of my stood up, I'm thinking, can you imagine if I'd have been homeschooled? I remember my kids coming on, they were about 4, saying, Daddy, and I couldn't do it for them. I said, just do some colouring. So the idea of trying to educate our 2 children, Georgina would have been great at it, but I'd have just said, right, it's PE every day, go in the garden and play. That's what I would have done. Same question for you, Suze?
Yeah, I think 2 things that just sprung to mind were, one of the things I think you spoke about earlier on in lockdown was adaptability. And we mentioned that word, didn't we? And I just think I've been so impressed by how quickly really people adapted to it just reminded me of how adaptable people are and resilient as well, that we'd just kind of thrown this situation, this is what it is, and then the way that people just adapted really well and really quickly. And it, like, even people that were struggling the first few weeks, there was then a kind of a shift with some people where you just noticed that they'd just adapted and gone, right, well, this is what it is, and just got on with it. And then the other word would be appreciation, because I think it's been lovely to see. I think it's just made people realise how much they appreciate church and people and that sense of community, even the power of a hug, suddenly not being able to do it. Some people have really missed that, haven't they? So they're 2 things that have really stood out to me really over the last few months, I'd say.
Yeah, we want to say a massive thank you to all our campus pastors and all the teams in each campus. You've done such a brilliant job at keeping people engaged, and so all our campus pastors from 4 of our core team here, we bless you. Georgina, let me ask you a question. You've been we had a conversation the other day, and you were talking about some people having a little bit of anxiety of coming out of lockdown because all the deaths and everything has been horrendous, and there's been some incredible challenges, but some people have found a new rhythm in lockdown, and a kind of slightly, you were talking about worried about losing that. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say that not everybody's in the same boat. And don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, because some people have been a lot busier, and just not a lot has changed during lockdown. But I think some people have slowed down a lot, and in that slowing down, in that tranquility, they've become more creative, more self-aware, more thankful, more grateful. A lot of things have come out, just the family time, just living from the inside out has just been a wonderful thing to them, as you get off the life's roundabout or whatever, and you just slow down with your own thoughts, your time with God, your Bible, the Holy Spirit, all these things. That tranquility just sort of hands us that gift, doesn't it? That when you slow down, it hands you the gift of creativity, of being more self-aware, and the things that I've said. And I think people, because they've enjoyed that, they've enjoyed that slower pace. Some people, having talked to some pastoral staff amongst yourselves, have said there's quite a lot of people that they've met with who are actually fearful of going back to the way things was, because they've found just a new rhythm that they've enjoyed. And so I think moving forward, because life is all about moving forward. I've got Psalm 37 here, and it says, keep moving forward steadily in his ways. And God is a God who's all about moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's just, what does that look like, going back, taking
Yeah.
the good and not the way things were, you know, possibly.
Absolutely.
And how you fit that in having a full-time job, raising a family, all the things, church, serving, how do you do that? And I think you just have to get more I mean, what would you say to that?
I think you almost have to make a mental note. What have I enjoyed that I want to put part of my new rhythm of life? Because everything will get busy again. You know, as September comes, as long as we don't hit a second peak, things will get back to normal. And then before you know it, we'll be in Asda and we'll be listening to, you know, Christmas music. Everything's going to get really busy. So I think it would be great while we've got these last few weeks of where we're in a form of lockdown, where we say, what do I want to take out of lockdown and what do I want to leave in lockdown? You know, so things like isolation are good to leave in lockdown, but solitude with God is a good thing to take into the business of your life. And I think, you know, we've all coped with lockdown very differently. Like, it was funny, we were at your house the other day, and we got in the car driving. We haven't told you this. We got in the car driving home, and we looked at each other, and I'm thinking about Joy. I'm thinking, did you see your children? They just came down from working in, and they just made their own dinner. And we're thinking, why didn't we teach our kids to do that? And Imogen and Freya just making their own dinner. They didn't ask any questions, and you know, and they just got out. They made their own dinner, and I'm thinking, shucks.
You do know that's because the pastor's in the house.
That's why.
Trying to impress.
So a question we'll throw at Susie, because you're obviously the teacher. You've got two girls, different ages. How have you helped them? Because kids often don't get it, do they? They think they don't understand. Or they can become really fearful that everybody's got this disease and it's like a Hollywood movie. How have you helped them just to navigate this so that they'll not be full of anxiety when they've had to go back to school?
Yeah, I think very often children take the lead, don't they, from the parents, and they kind of mirror what they see. So I think at the beginning we made an intentional decision that we didn't want them to see any fear in us, and we wanted them to be aware of the situation and praying for people that would be going through stuff and be sensible as well and follow the government guidelines. So yeah, they've been fine, and our youngest just went back to school a few weeks ago, and they've put really strict measures in place at school, and she was desperate to get back. There was no fear of, you know, going mixing with other children or anything like that. So yeah, just kind of I suppose if we were really fearful and anxious about it all, then they would mirror that, wouldn't they? And it's been a good opportunity really to just take Bible verses and, you know, really live them out and say, you know, well, here's some verses about fear, girls. And so right at the beginning, this is what we believe and this is what we're kind of standing on, you know. And so, yeah. But I think going back, if we could just go back to the hurry thing again, is that all right? What George was just saying, because I had a thought, there's a couple of books, isn't there, that quite a few people have been reading over lockdown, which we can recommend in a minute. But both of them have a theme of Sabbath running through them. And I've spoke to quite a few people who've really tried during this time to implement, probably because it's been a bit more realistic for some people, to implement that concept of Sabbath. And and I think that's a really good thing moving forward, that can be implemented even when life does go back. And like you say, what can we still learn from this time and this period that will be positive and used for good in the future? Because I think that it's a really important concept, because you're right, things will go back to busy, things will go back to hurry. So making sure that we've got that. I used to think of Sabbath as, we can have it in sections throughout the week, but really it's a day for your whole body to slow down, for your mind to slow down. And that's something that I know quite a few people I've talked to are trying to implement into their life. And I think that's really good. So so those books are worth recommending, aren't they?
And thinking about what Georgina said as well, what I've realised is it's really easy to lose your perspective when you're busy.
Yes.
And what lockdown's given us is a chance to just press pause on a few things, withdraw from maybe our daily routines and rethink our perspective. And actually some things that really mattered in February actually don't really matter. And you can Jesus did it. He withdrew a lot more than I withdraw, and that challenges me, where you think, if Jesus needed it to get his perspective, make sure it's in check, how much more do I? And so being in lockdown's given me a chance to rethink some stuff, reassess some relationships, audit my walk with God, really think about where my head's at. And what I want to do is, when I go back to the future, I don't just go back into business as normal, because I think I lost my perspective on a few things. And I think with the kids, we've not hidden them away from the news. Even with the whole Black Lives Matter thing, we've made sure they're aware of it, and we've talked about what a kingdom perspective looks like. And I've realised I've not really prioritised that as a parent enough, and I need to make sure that that's a big part of me going back into normal living. So I think this whole thing of Sabbath and rest, and although it's different for different people, what we can learn is perspective is everything. If you get back into the business and lose your perspective, I think you lose your momentum, you lose your vision. The Bible says, doesn't it, when you lose your vision, you perish. And so I think that's what it's helpful for as a family, just regroup, rethink some stuff, what's important, and let's move on.
I think for a lot of people in Kings, like Georgina said, it is very different, isn't it? Some people, lockdown has been like an enforced holiday. I was talking to somebody yesterday who said it's like the government have paid me to have 3 months holiday. And then you have some people in the church who've never been busier. You know, people that are doctors and nurses and teachers and essential workers that can't wait for this season to be over. Because they want to get back to normal, because normal was easier. So some people are trying to get back to normal because normal would be easier, and some people think, I don't want to get back to normal.
It's true,
and because we're all in, you know, and we don't want to judge one another's experience. But you know, these next few months, churches buildings is going to have to start reopening. People are going to have to start getting together, and there's going to be a level of anxiety in that, isn't there? Particularly people that have been shielded, people that are older, people that underlying health issues. And, you know, at the end of the day, the church is a family, and Zoom calls have been great. And, you know, I thank God for all the things that we've been able to do, because if they'd have been the 60s or 70s, we wouldn't be able to do anything. And if it had been before telephones, what would people have been able to do? You'd have been really isolated. So let's thank God for social media. I don't often say that, but thank God for social media and technology. But I think in some people now, it's like they're thinking about the future and there's anxiety starting to come up, thinking, oh no, going back to church, hundreds of people, hustle and bustle, kids, ministry, serving, what will that look like? And I think what we've got to do is try and help paint a picture of, it's not just, oh, it's over, everybody back in, jump in, but actually there's a transitioning of this. And so we'll talk about some of the practicalities of that in a minute. But Georgina, you talk for me just about that whole thing of not letting your heart become anxious of things, and going at your own pace, and not letting people put guilt on you for the pace that you want to go at.
Well, first of all, we're all very different, and that's by God's design. So I think you've got to just get more self-aware, and I'm trying to be more self-aware, and how I do that. And I'm not saying self-focused, self-centred, self-indulgent, they're different things. But being self-aware is a good thing, because the more you understand yourself, there comes the freedom with it. You know, we're fearfully and wonderfully made, the Bible says, and each one of us are very, very different and very unique. And God's called us into a body to function together because we all need one another. So rather than put people down or criticise or judge because they're not like me or they're not like you, let's celebrate that difference in people. And the question I can't remember, but I think it was about fear. Write down those emotions, name them, because there's so, you know, resentment, bitterness, there's bad emotions, but what's the root in that? Or, you know, anxiety, fear, different types of anxiety, different types of fear. So I think noticing and identifying those emotions and thinking, naming them, what is the root of this emotion that I'm feeling? And a lot of these emotions about going forward probably will be rooted in some kind of fear about what the future's going to look like.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the question was.
It's good.
Sometimes in my own world, this is how I'm creating.
Well, welcome to my world. It's funny, sometimes...
It was good stuff, but I don't know if it answers the question.
Sometimes I come down for breakfast in the morning. This is just a glimpse into our marriage. Come down for breakfast in the morning and I'll say, "Hi, love, you all right? Do you want a brew?" And she'll say, "I don't like red." And I'll say, "What? I've told you I don't like red." And I'm thinking... And what Georgina does, she continues the conversation from 2.5 days ago, but I need notice. And so I've learned over 30 years of us being married, I'm a man, right? I need notice that we're picking up on 2 days ago, or I just get lost. I think you're talking about Manchester United or something. So let's get on to the practicalities of coming back to church, back to a service, back to ministry, all the things that make people... Some people will be incredibly excited, and the first day we open the doors, they'll run in. Other people will probably monitor it for a while and see how many turn up and face masks and everything. Before we ask any questions, let us guarantee you we are working tirelessly behind the scenes. And the first priority in all this is not getting you back to church. The first priority in this is keeping you safe. Yeah. So right across our campuses, we're not going to rush anything. We're not in a competition to be the first church in Bolton to open the doors because we'll get into heaven first. No. Our first priority is the safety of the hundreds of people and hundreds of children that God has given us to look after across all our campuses. So we're going to come back orderly, we're going to come back safe, we're going to come back, and everything that the government have recommended will be in place, both with hygiene and distancing and things like that. So we're not going to rush this. So if you're asking, when are we back? Because I've heard of a church down the road that are back. We're not going to be back till we can sing together, till we can laugh together, till we can at least talk face to face to each other. I don't want us sitting 3 meters apart, can't sing, can't listen to preaching, can't play worship. That's just sitting in a waiting room for me. That's not what we're coming back to. So we're going to stay online for as long as we need to till we can come back, and we will let you know weeks in advance. Don't think if I go on holiday will they be back. No, we will let you know weeks in advance of when we're going to reopen our buildings right across our campuses. We would be hopeful to do that all on one day, and we'll make it back to church Sunday. But if you're fearful, don't worry. You come back when you're ready. Our guarantee is we'll be glad to see you whenever you're coming back to church. And for all the new people, because I've noticed on Zoom and Hangouts and Connect groups that we've had over our campuses, I've been going on thinking, I don't know them. And people say, oh, they've joined while we've been in lockdown. How dare you join church in lockdown? And we don't even know who you are, so we're looking forward to... Do you think, Ads... for people who have not been to church, there's a few people that are watching, kind of they've not been for a while, or they used to come and don't come, and kind of logging on's been a bit easier. You can sit in your PJs on a Sunday morning or a Thursday night, and do you think this may have created something in people of desire? I need to get back to church. What's your thoughts on that?
Wow, I mean, yes.
We hope
That's
so.
the short answer. I mean, it's really important to say, the Bible's really clear, do not give up the habit of meeting together. Online church is really ultimately for those that can't get to the buildings, but the church gathered's a beautiful thing. Yeah. What a good friend of mine that's become a good friend in lockdown is a guy that was running past the church, felt he really wanted to come. He's not been to one service yet we've been talking about God. He's been in my back garden. We've been talking about the Bible. He's hungry to get to know God. And I'm thinking, we need to get church gathered back on the ground. And I want him to meet people. And I want him to show them the family of God. So the church gathered is a beautiful thing. And what this has done is it's sort of given a glimpse back into what church is. And for those that maybe haven't been for a while, I want to encourage you to not bottle this when church becomes gathered, to have the courage to step over the threshold and stop letting fear hold you back, because there's a family waiting for you, and we love it when people reconnect. But also for new people that maybe are just looking at church and thinking, it's raising questions. I know for Bolton we're going to start an Alpha course soon, but it's not about going on a course. It's about walking through a door and knowing you are welcome. This is home. We can't wait. We cannot wait to gather again, and that's really important. But like Derek said, we'll do it at the right time, in the right way. Sometimes when I talk to Derek, we're like, we're doing it tomorrow, and we just can't wait. But we have to wait and do this right. But you know, the church gathered's a beautiful thing, and I want to encourage anybody that's watching, whether it's tonight or Sundays, and you're thinking about it, I dare you to do it, to join when church becomes functional again in buildings. Why don't you do it? We'll do everything we can to help you, but it's got to be your call. But I can't wait till that day. I can't wait. I think we're going to go on a hugathon, aren't we?
me and Georgina were talking the other day that we've started a new ministry during lockdown, though we didn't intend to start it. And I think it's called the Ministry of Nosy Beggars. And it's really been interesting looking at what people can watch on the different platforms, and looking at people that are watching you thinking, you little so-and-so. You've never been to our church, but you're kind of watching, you're looking. And I just think that's brilliant. What a you know, whether you watched the whole programme or 3 minutes or 1 minute, we don't care. We're just glad that you took time to come, and you know, stepping through the door. Hopefully online church is step one to stepping through the door, to making relationships, to really having your life transformed. What was really funny, last Friday I was out with some friends of mine and we booked an Indian restaurant. Surprise.
Of course.
And, so I'm waiting for them outside this Indian restaurant, and one of the people that come to church walked in with his girlfriend, and we kind of bumped into each other, and she said, oh, you're off the telly. I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity, just as another couple were exiting the Indian restaurant. So we had a chat, and we had for a minute. But this other couple in the car park going, who is he? He's from the telly. So, you know, I am famous, I'm on the telly. So we're not just talking about coming back to a building, because that's just geography. We're actually talking about coming back to a new rhythm. And we as church don't want to be prescriptive. Everybody's got to do it exactly the same way. We want to celebrate people's diversity, celebrate people's uniqueness, how they're going to run with their relationship with God. But what could people at home right now do to say, I want to put this ingredient in my new rhythm of coming back to church gathered that's going to affect the whole of my life? What good things could they put in the ingredients?
I think what I've learned, and I hope this answers the question, that I want to become more committed to simplicity. What are the big things that need to go in first? What's the most important things? Because I think I became a little bit of the tyranny of to-do lists. And so I'm looking back and I'm thinking, right, what are the big things? So being in church on Sunday mornings, non-negotiable. That's a simple thing. Daily devotionals with Jesus is a non-negotiable. It's got to be like the air I breathe. Without that, I can't breathe as a Christian. Daily walking with Susie through stuff and asking God, what are you saying to us? Not just doing the next thing on the list all the time, but asking God to speak to us. So I think the two words God's really been speaking to us, and you can fill in on this, are simplicity and consistency. Like actually saying we're going to be consistent with that, and we're going to make it really simple. Sometimes we overcomplicate, even being a Christian, we can overcomplicate it. So the whole thing about New Rhythm for me is not trying to do too much, just trying to make the big things the main things and get those things in first, and everything revolves around it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the whole putting church gathered as a priority in your life is there's that verse that says in the Psalms about planted in the house they will flourish, and I do think that as we put that as a real stake in the ground of this is non-negotiable, you know, we gather as a church, and then the rest of the week is church scattered, isn't it, which was a message that you spoke, Pastor Derek, a few years ago now. I think it might be longer than that. Time flies, doesn't it? But yeah, we come together as church gathered, And then the idea is that we scatter. Now, we've not been doing much gathering physically, but we'll be able to do that again soon. But just getting that in, I think, you know, when people say, oh, I haven't got time to come to church or whatever, something supernatural actually happens when you do, and you come and you start to kind of order your world around God's ways and God's principles and you know, building his kingdom. There is something really powerful about it. So yeah, planted in the house, they will flourish. So let's get back and let's get planted and flourishing again.
I think it's a good tip that we've learned over the years of bringing up 2 small children is, you know, if the kids haven't been to church, which they won't have been for months and months and months, they're out the habit, and kids build habits very quickly. And, you know, getting your family back into the habit of getting up on a Sunday morning and getting out the house and all that, and kids might find that a bit weird for a time. And I think we've got to implement good habits moving forward that are really going to help. Habits are not negative as long as they don't control us in the sense of, oh, I've got to do this, and I can't say, no, I don't have to do that. But a habit, when it's a good outcome, is a good thing. So, you know, for some people, it may be they've got to get into the habit of getting up on a Sunday morning, having a shower, getting dressed, and getting to God's house. Why? Because the investment of church gathered will empower church scattered. And, you know, coming, listening to great messages, meeting great people, being encouraged, hearing stories, all those things we've missed. You can do it on social media. You know, life stories have been brilliant, haven't they? And our Sunday messages. But, you know, I think I've probably preached more than most people during this lockdown period. And it's so frustrating to be in your dining room and you're looking at a screen. And you're particularly for me, because I'm I want to minister to people, and I've just got an Apple Mac in front of me. And I just can't wait for getting the mic, standing on the stage and looking at people and eyeballing people. Because I think there's something in that environment that you can't get watching it in your PJs 2 days later, for all you people that don't watch it live. So I think we've got to really encourage, you know, that meeting together, that joining together, that family. But, you know, me and Georgie were talking, we are going to keep using Zoom for. I've thought to myself, why have I driven all that way sometimes?
I never thought I'd hear you say that, David.
But I'm going to say, no, Zoom. Because what I've learnt in Zoom, as long as I put a nice top on, I can have flip-flop and shorts on under the table.
You're techie now.
Nobody knows, and I can look like I know what I'm doing. But underneath the where you can't see, I've got my shorts on and my flip-flops. In fact, I think other than the last couple of days, this is the first time I've worn long trousers for about 3 or 4 months, because I've just enjoyed being in my shorts.
Can I just jump in on the thing you were talking about before, about going to church and getting everything that you can receive? It's also a thing about giving as well. Like, you don't just come to church to receive and what's good for you. It's actually a place to contribute and to get out of you what God's put into you. And I think that's what I'm realising we're missing a bit now, because we're not the church gathered. So we've become a little bit self-indulgent. And that's not a bad thing for a season, but we have to get back to the point people can contribute back and get out of them what God's put in them. I think as well, the rhythm side of stuff for a family, the first few months of chilling out in your PJs was cool, but we recognise now there's still a discipline of getting ready for church that we've missed a bit, and we're starting to turn it a bit now and say, right, come on kids, we're going to get ready, get in front of the TV, let's get dressed, make sure you're ready, you've had your quiet time, and we're ready to receive, rather than we just stumble out of bed. At first that was a novelty, but this ain't going to be changing anytime soon, the online church. And so we need to turn it a bit now as a family and say, how can we get ready more for what God's going to say? So particularly now with people coming over to our house, which we started doing, it's making us be ready for church.
And we open the front door and go, welcome to church.
Wow.
Pass them a Bible.
Georgie, did you notice they said they had a quiet time before church? They are a lot more spiritual than I am. So I don't have a quiet time before church.
That's just the children.
I just have a bacon butter before church. Okay, a question for you, Georgina. You probably more than anybody I know read just for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes when I get up in the morning, Georgina, if she's already up, sat down, she's reading, and I bounce into the kitchen, put the kettle on, and I want to talk to her because I've got this thought, and she walks around with 15 books, a devotional, and she walks around and she's constantly reading, because you feel that is a real way of equipping and empowering and putting, and I do too. I'm not saying I don't read, but I'm not like you for that reading. Tell us over lockdown how that's helped you when you haven't had church together, how that reading, that time aside, that quietness and stillness has really helped you.
Can I just go back to when you say Zoom? Because I can't say Zoom without going Zoom. And the kids, Oliver thinks it's hilarious. I don't know why. Because of the double O bit, I have to go, I'm going on Zoom. I don't, anyway, that's just a side note. I have to say it with like 3 O's in the middle. But I love to read. I don't know. I think it's part of my makeup. I'm not putting that on everybody else. Although I do think leaders are readers, because you've got to, first of all, the Word of God. It's God's Word. It's powerful. It's active. It's not just like any other book. So I have about 4 highlighters, and I just think, wow. And the truth is, it's so good. Just one psalm half of it can be highlighted, because I'm just chewing over it and love it. And I don't know, some of that is my makeup, but I think unless I'm putting into me, I can't then, in a meeting with someone, or help them, because you've got to fill up on God and His Word and His truth and His wisdom. So there's been several books, but we're intended to get out of us what's in us. So just as we're filling up with wisdom, and I've joined several things that I'm doing some mentoring stuff. I think everybody in their life needs a plus, an equal and a minus. And by a minus, I don't mean somebody who's less than you. I mean somebody who's learning from you. You need a plus, somebody you're learning from, and somebody who's inputting. Now, that doesn't have to be a friend and somebody you're in close relationship. Sometimes it's an author that you'll just get so much from that person. Sometimes it's somebody, a speaker, a communicator who's a Christian, and just everything that they say just seems to build your life. They're like this person in your life you found that you just connect, you learn from. And then you need equals who you're discussing things with and talking about things that you are learning together and growing together, and you can. But you also need people you're inputting into, and they're learn. So often when I learn something, quickly I share it with somebody who I think they might benefit from that. They might need it, because I feel part of and often a lot of leaders is we get stuff. I've had 2 visions in my life. I'm not going weird, but 2 visions, and it's been the same vision, 7 years apart, and it was a mummy bird flying out of a nest of very hungry birds with a mouth open, baby birds with their mouths open wide, and this mummy bird went to some really fertile soil and dug for some worms, and went back to the birds with these worms, these juicy fat worms. And I'm like, God, what is this? I was wide awake, the same vision, 7 years apart, and I knew that was a calling for me, that I get stuff and you bring it back. And I think it's really important, whatever we're learning, that we pass that on. And it doesn't have to be super spiritual stuff. I've read Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, just a brilliant book. Learn a lot from people's life experiences, their feelings, their thoughts. So I just think for all of us as leaders, and we're all leading someone and growing someone, that we fill our life with stuff, with good stuff, and we don't just keep it bottled in, but we pass that on.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, Derek, I've got a question for you, because we're going to finish now.
Okay.
This is your, I think it's 16th week of Table Talk, and that's a lot of, you've fronted it really well. And I think we've covered a lot of topics. What's been your favourite one? What's been the conversation you've really enjoyed?
Oh, blimey, that's a biggie. I think I've enjoyed them all in different ways. Some were quite fun. The one with Mark Ritchie was quite fun. Some of the ones that me and Georgina did right at the beginning, which was our journey, when we did talk to you guys, we talked to Ian and Joe. That was fun in formulating where the church had come from, and then we've done, the one with Julie Keir was really informative, and then we've done lots of things like with Paul Weaver and Paul Benger. I think my favourite one has got to be this one, because what people don't know is we just spent the last 15 minutes in hysterical laughter, and if this is going to make the outtakes, but I've just enjoyed, what I've enjoyed the whole of Table Talk is just being able to sit down, talk real life, and hope it helps people.
Yeah.
And you know, our goal of Table Talk is just to encourage the church, to let the church see that you know, even leaders are struggling with certain things.
Yeah.
I talked on Wednesday about frustration at the full staff meeting, and you know, it's normal to have been frustrated. If you haven't been frustrated over these last 16 weeks, you're probably not alive.
Yeah.
So frustration is part of the journey, but learning to overcome frustration is part of your discipleship. It's learning not to live in frustration, but to recognise, I feel frustrated about this. And, you know, of all the people, I think I've done really well, because I would have been the kind of person that would have, if you'd have said to me at the start of the year, 8 months lockdown, I'd have thought, I cannot cope with that. But I think I've dealt with it on pretty good with God's help and God's strength. And I think that's the testament we've all got. Yeah. God has helped us and bringing us through this. You know, tonight was all about, you know, back to the future. We're going, Kings is going forward to the future. We know we're going back to work, back to school, back to a degree of normality. But the things we've discussed tonight is going to empower us to come out of this really strong. It's been a setback. I think, you know, we have to be honest. Yeah, this has been a setback to lots of things. But as we've talked about on the Sundays, this is going to only increase the strength of our comeback. And so I'm excited what the back end of this year looks like, 2021, and into all the great things that God has for us in the future. So we've done really, we've not killed each other, have we?
Not yet.
We still love each other. You know, I think we've done pretty good.
You're on Facebook, you're doing Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
You're a new man, Derek.
I'm on Facebook.
Who
Have you
knew?
not been tutoring people and helping them with their technical problems?
You know, I am thinking of doing a worldwide lecture tour on social media and its benefits to the human soul. So I've learned a lot of new things. You know, Georgina's become a media sensation with her cooking. And, you know, cooking tips and how to clean the washing machine and all those kind of things. I think we've done some things just to be daft and be silly and laugh and think. If you know, laughter is as we've just experienced is like taking the cork out of a bottle. Sometimes emotion is a release, and you know, however that's come out, and over these last 16 weeks, it will have come out in some people very positively, but emotion will come out in other people very negatively. Yeah. And so we've just got to make sure that we're part of our well-being and our mental health is to make sure that we realise frustration is real, and we learn disciplined how to deal with it.
It's good. So all the table talks are on our website. You can get hold of them via YouTube as well. Every session that we've done table talk now across these 16 weeks. And tonight's taking our break, isn't it, for the summer?
Yeah, break for the summer.
I mean, people ask me all the time, what we're doing in September? And the genuine answer is, we don't know.
No, we haven't decided
We don't know yet.
We haven't decided. Maybe Table Talk will come back or morph into something else. We will definitely be doing something to encourage you. Yeah. If you've got any ideas, you know, we're not the fonts of all knowledge. Email into us and let us know your thoughts of what we could do midweek. But please, over the summer, stay connected outside of Sunday as well. Now we can, social distancing is easing a little bit. You know, go out for a meal with people, have people at your home. Stay safe, but please make sure you keep connected. And as the leader, I'm going to ask the very last question. One thing from everybody, what you'd like to say to all our 6 campuses watching for them to really think about over the summer period before we kind of get together on Table Talk or whatever it is in the autumn. Adam, you can go first.
Wow. I mean, summer always feels like a long, long time, doesn't it? I mean, our kids have got 7 weeks off. And it's a lot of time where we're not going to be doing midweek stuff and we're not going to be doing table talk. But I know one person said to me once when I was a young man in ministry, take a holiday, but don't take a holiday from God. Yeah. And use this time to just press into God even more. And I'd love to think September we hit the ground running with new vision a real intimacy with God, and full of the next step of what God's got for us. Because I know we say this is a cliche thing, but it's true. The best is yet to come. And I think 2020, we've not seen the best of what God can do yet. And I really believe the best is yet to come. So really use this time to breathe. There's some great books. We recommended 2 books before, didn't we? One was The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And the other one is the one on emotionally
healthy leader.
Emotionally healthy leader as well. So they're 2 great books, and I'm sure we could all recommend some stuff. But that's my lesson I'm going to do. Georgina?
Have some fun.
Yeah.
Don't take things too seriously, yourself too seriously, and be deliberate about having a laugh, because we've just not been deliberate about having a laugh. We've just had about 45 outtakes just of hysterical laughter. But the Bible says laughter is good for the soul. So, you know, God's in control, God's on the throne. Everyone has problems and difficulties, but make a point every day of having fun and having some laughter in your life.
Susanna?
Yeah, just maybe to use the summer to really build relationships, and I think we mentioned before about church being not just to receive but to give, and to just spend time with people and bless them by being with them and spending time with them. Think of ways that you can still find that outlet to give. God made us to give and reflect him. So yeah, just building relationships and looking out and seeing how we can bless people as well during that time before we come to September and get things going again in some way, whatever that looks like.
Well, brilliant. Thank you, Adam and Susie. Thank you, Georgina. Thank you for all watching tonight on Table Talk. We pray that you have a fabulous summer, whatever campus you're from, or even if you've been watching and you're not from one of our King's campuses, it will be great to see you again, and particularly when we can meet together physically in our buildings. Have a blessed summer. We pray the sun shines wherever you're going on holiday, or if you're having a staycation at home, doing some DIY, whatever you're doing over the summer, be really blessed. And know this, that we're preparing for your return to church. We love you and we're praying for you and we believe in you. Have a great summer. On behalf of us, to you, love you, Lord. See you soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Just in case you're wondering why there was a slight break in the camera, is that we're just all had a 5-minute laughing.
5 minutes?
Well, we've lost it because of Georgina explaining something with a hand, and we lost it for 5 minutes. So just letting you know, this will be on the Outtakes DVD that will be out for Christmas, or lockdown outtakes from kingschurchlife.com.
So I get stuff, and then I...
Oh God!
So I just know it's a calling that God's...
Come on,
All right.
we need to get this done.
1, 2, 3. So I get stuff. I feel this is a calling for me to get stuff and to pass it on to...
I don't know about you, but I've been really impressed with myself during lockdown that I've not been as frustrated as I thought I would have been. You know, if you said...
The last few months. Go on, Sue.
I was watching a couple on TV the other day, and they'd enjoyed this extra time because they usually travel around the world, and they'd enjoyed this time together. But basically, you know, I think it's
Oh no!
Sorry guys, this is how it's been the last month.
our daily life. We go to work, we have different social events or church, different places we can go to, and things that we can do.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I was really putting you. I saw you moving. I'm alright.
Oh, God. Together. This is the most painful thing. Gary, one thing you're really proud of is being a one-take wonder. What do you think about that?
Right, stop it, Derek. Go on now. Woo! Right, come on, let's get this finished. Go on, there.
Go.
Derek, no.
I just can't. I've lost it.
Eric, think of prayer at the school gate. It's the last day of school. And
After 16 weeks, I've just lost it. Oh, gosh. We were mentioning a full staff meeting on Wednesday about frustration. And frustration, during lockdown, it can be a time of incredible. I can't do this, I'm just laughing in a minute. I'm just going to... I've been through... What does it look like? I'm thinking about world poverty. Once we have started. Twice. Lord bless you. It's like and keep me.
I think it's something sad.
I'm crying because
It's something sad.
Oh, right. Right. We've got to get on with this. It's not fair on you need time. One of the things I've been really impressed with myself over lockdown is if you'd have said, oh God, keep on going, keep on going, keep on going.